Las Vegas, 1973. Michael dropped to one knee during Elvis's show and proposed to his girlfriend Karen. She said no, loudly, in front of 3,000 people. The silence was unbearable. Then Elvis walked over, microphone in hand, and what he said in the next 5 minutes not only saved Michael's dignity but saved their relationship. They've been married for 50 years because of what Elvis taught them that night. The proposal that was supposed to be perfect. Michael Patterson had been planning this proposal for 6 months. He'd saved up for the ring, a modest but beautiful diamond that cost him 3 months' salary. He'd bought tickets to Elvis's show in Las Vegas for his girlfriend Karen's birthday. He'd even contacted the hotel ahead of time to arrange for the perfect moment. Michael and Karen had been dating for 3 years. They'd met in college, fallen in love quickly, and had been inseparable ever since. Michael was 25, working as an engineer. Karen was 24, teaching elementary school. They made sense together. Everyone said so. Michael had been dropping hints about marriage for months. Karen would smile and change the subject. Michael assumed she was being coy, playing hard to get, building anticipation. He never considered that her subject changing might mean something else entirely. On November 10th, 1973, Michael and Karen flew to Las Vegas for the weekend. Karen thought it was just a birthday trip. She had no idea Michael was planning to propose during the Elvis concert. "This is going to be perfect," Michael told himself as they took their seats in the showroom at the Hilton Hotel. "Elvis will be playing. The lights will be romantic. Everyone will see. She'll say yes. It'll be the story we tell our grandkids." He had no idea how wrong things were about to go. The moment, everything fell apart. Elvis was halfway through his show, having just finished Burning Love. The crowd was electric, everyone on their feet, dancing and singing along. This was the moment Michael had been waiting for. During a brief pause between songs, Michael stood up. His hands were shaking. His heart was pounding. He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out the small velvet box containing the ring. "Karen," Michael said loudly enough for people around them to hear. "Stand up." Karen, confused, stood up. "Michael, what are you—" Michael dropped to one knee right there in the aisle. People around them immediately noticed and started pointing. Within seconds, a ripple of awareness spread through the crowd. Someone was proposing. Everyone wanted to see. Elvis noticed the commotion. He walked to the edge of the stage, peering into the audience. "Looks like we got something happening out there. Folks, give them some room." A spotlight swung toward Michael and Karen. Suddenly, 3,000 people were staring at them. Michael's carefully planned intimate proposal had become a very public spectacle. Michael opened the box, revealing the ring. "Karen, I love you. I've loved you since the day we met. I want to spend the rest of my life with you. Will you marry me?" The crowd held its breath, waiting for the magical yes that always comes in romantic movie scenes. Karen says the one word nobody expected. Karen looked at Michael, then at the ring, then at the 3,000 people watching, then back at Michael. "No," she said quietly. Michael thought he'd misheard. "What?" "No, Michael, I can't marry you." The word no echoed through the showroom. People gasped. The romantic moment turned into a nightmare in an instant. Michael's face went white. "What do you mean, no?" "I mean, no. I'm sorry, Michael, but I can't do this." The crowd didn't know what to do. Some people looked away, embarrassed. Others stared, unable to look away from the train wreck happening in front of them. A few people whispered to each other, gossip already beginning. Michael remained on one knee, frozen, the ring box still open in his hand. He looked like he'd been punched in the stomach. But I thought, we've been together for 3 years. I thought you wanted this." "You thought I wanted this," Karen said, her voice shaking. "You never asked me what I wanted. You just assumed." The showroom was so quiet you could hear people breathing. This was no longer entertainment. This was real pain, real conflict, playing out in front of thousands of strangers. Elvis stood at the edge of the stage, microphone in hand, watching the disaster unfold. He could have told his band to start playing, drowning out the awkwardness with music. He could have made a joke to lighten the mood. He could have moved on with the show. But Elvis didn't do any of those things. Elvis intervenes. "Hold on," Elvis said into the microphone, his voice calm but authoritative. "Hold on a minute. We're not moving on until we figure this out." Elvis looked at his band. "Guys, take 5. Get some water. This is going to take a minute." The band members looked at each other, confused, but they put down their instruments and walked off stage. Elvis was giving up stage time, losing momentum in his show, to deal with someone else's relationship crisis. Elvis walked down the steps from the stage and into the audience. Security moved to follow him, but Elvis waved them off. "I got this." Elvis walked right up to Michael and Karen. Michael was still on one knee, looking like he wanted to die. Karen was crying. guilt and confusion written all over her face. "Son, you can stand up now," Elvis said gently to Michael. Michael stood on shaky legs, closing the ring box and shoving it back in his pocket. "I'm sorry, Mr. Presley. I didn't mean to ruin your show." "You didn't ruin anything. But we need to talk about what just happened here." Elvis turned to the audience. "Folks, I know you came here for a concert, but sometimes life happens in the middle of concerts. And when life happens, we deal with it. So bear with me for a few minutes while I try to help these two young people figure things out." Elvis asks Karen a question that changes everything. Elvis turned to Karen. "What's your name, honey?" "Karen." "Karen, you just said no to this man's proposal in front of 3,000 people. That took guts. It would have been easier to say yes and deal with it later. Why'd you say no?" Karen looked at Michael, then at Elvis, then at the thousands of people watching. "Because he didn't ask me what I wanted. He assumed. He planned this whole elaborate proposal without ever having a real conversation with me about marriage. He never asked if I was ready. He never asked what kind of proposal I'd want. He just decided and expected me to go along with it." Elvis nodded slowly. "So it's not that you don't love him. It's that you feel like he's not listening to you." "Yes," Karen said, relief flooding her face. Someone finally understood. "I love Michael, but I don't feel like he sees me as a partner. He sees me as, I don't know, a prize he's trying to win, something to be claimed, not someone to be understood." Elvis turned to Michael. "What's your name, son?" "Michael." "Michael, did you hear what Karen just said?" "I heard her say no in front of 3,000 people," Michael said bitterly. "I heard her humiliate me." "That's what you heard. But that's not what she said. She said she loves you but doesn't feel like you listen to her. Those are different things." Elvis paused, letting that sink in. The audience watched in complete silence. This wasn't entertainment anymore. This was relationship counseling happening in real time. "Michael, can I ask you something? Before you planned this proposal, did you ever actually talk to Karen about marriage? Not hints, not assumptions. Did you sit down and ask her, do you want to get married? Are you ready for that? What kind of life do you want to build together?" Michael opened his mouth to respond, then closed it. He thought for a moment. "No, I guess I didn't." "You didn't talk to her because you were afraid of what she might say. You were afraid she might not be ready, might want to wait, might have concerns. So instead of having that scary conversation, you planned this big romantic moment and hoped she'd get swept up in it and say yes. Am I right?" Michael's face crumbled. "Yeah, that's exactly what I did." The wisdom nobody expected. Elvis looked at both of them. "Here's what I've learned about relationships in my 40 years on this planet. And I've made enough mistakes to fill several lifetimes, so I'm speaking from experience. Marriage isn't about grand gestures. It's not about big romantic moments or perfect proposals. Marriage is about communication. It's about seeing your partner as a whole person with their own thoughts and feelings and dreams, not just as someone who fits into your plans." "Michael, you wanted to marry Karen, but did you want to marry the real Karen with all her complexities and opinions? Or did you want to marry the version of Karen who would smile and say yes and fit into your vision of the future?" What Elvis tells Michael makes 3,000 people gasp. "I love Karen," Michael said defensively. "I want to spend my life with her." "I believe you, but love isn't enough. Marriage requires respect. It requires seeing your partner as an equal, not as someone who's supposed to follow your lead. Karen isn't a supporting character in your story. She's the main character in her own story. And if you two are going to build a life together, you need to be co-authors, not one person writing while the other just goes along with it." Elvis turned to Karen. "And Karen, you're right to say no if you're not ready or if you don't feel heard. Don't ever let anyone pressure you into a life you're not sure you want. But I've got a question for you too. Have you been honest with Michael about how you feel? Have you told him that you need more communication, more partnership, more equality in this relationship? Or have you been hoping he'd figure it out on his own?" Karen looked down. "I've dropped hints. I've tried to bring it up, but every time I do, Michael gets defensive or changes the subject, so I just stop trying." "So you've both been avoiding hard conversations," Elvis said. "Michael avoids asking what you really want because he's scared of the answer. You avoid telling him what you need because you're scared of conflict. And now you're here, in the middle of my concert, having the conversation you should have had months ago." Elvis looked at the audience. "Folks, this is real life. This is what relationships look like when we don't communicate, when we assume instead of ask, when we avoid hard conversations because we're scared. Michael and Karen love each other, but love without communication is just two people standing next to each other feeling alone." The audience was completely silent. Many people were crying. This had stopped being about Michael and Karen. This was about every relationship in that room that was struggling with the same issues. The challenge Elvis gave them. Elvis looked at both of them. Here's what's going to happen. I'm going to give you two a choice. You can walk out of here right now, go back to your hotel, and have a real conversation. Not a proposal, not an argument, a real conversation about what you both want, what you're both scared of, and whether you can build a partnership based on respect and communication. Or you can end things now. Karen can say, "We're not right for each other," and walk away. Michael can keep the shit, ring and find someone else. No shame in either choice. But you've got to choose something. You can't keep doing what you've been doing, avoiding hard truths and hoping everything works out. Michael looked at Karen. "I don't want to lose you." "Then talk to me," Karen said. "Really talk to me, not at me, with me. Ask me what I want. Listen to my answers. Stop planning our future without including me in the planning." "I can do that," Michael said. "I will do that. I'm sorry I didn't before." Elvis smiled. "That's a start. Now get out of here. Go have that conversation. And if you decide marriage is what you both want, after talking about it for real, then you can have a proper proposal, one where both people are on the same page." Elvis turned to the audience. "Let's give these two young people some privacy and some good luck." The audience applauded as Michael and Karen walked out of the showroom, hand in hand, ready to have the conversation they should have had months ago. What happened that night? Michael and Karen went back to their hotel room. They talked for 6 hours straight. No TV, no distractions, just talking. Karen told Michael everything she'd been afraid to say, that she felt like he made decisions without consulting her, that she wanted a partnership, not someone who would plan her life for her, that she needed him to listen more and assume less. Michael told Karen everything he'd been afraid to say, that he was scared she'd leave him if he didn't lock her down with marriage, that he'd been raised to believe men should lead and women should follow, and he was realizing that belief was wrong, that he wanted to be a better partner but didn't know how. They talked about marriage, what it meant, what they both wanted from it, what scared them about it. They talked about careers and kids and where they'd live and how they'd handle money. All the conversations Michael had been avoiding because they felt too real, too scary, too permanent. By 6 a.m., they'd reached some conclusions. Yes, they both wanted to get married, but not yet. They needed more time to build a foundation of real communication first. Michael needed to learn to ask instead of assume. Karen needed to learn to speak up instead of dropping hints and hoping Michael would figure it out. They would work on their relationship for another year, practice being real partners. Then, if they still wanted marriage, Michael could propose again, but this time it would be a mutual decision, not a surprise. The proposal that worked. 1 year later, in November 1974, Michael and Karen returned to Las Vegas. They'd spent that year in couples therapy, learning to communicate, building the partnership they'd been missing. They went to another Elvis concert at the Hilton. Michael didn't plan to propose. They'd already decided together that they wanted to get married. Michael had asked Karen weeks earlier, "Are you ready?" Karen had said, "Yes, are you?" Michael had said, "Yes." That was their proposal. Simple, mutual, equal. But at the concert, something unexpected happened. Elvis recognized them in the audience. "Hey," Elvis said from the stage, squinting into the crowd. "Is that Michael and Karen, the couple from last year?" Michael and Karen stood up, shocked that Elvis remembered them. "Come on up here," Elvis said. "I want to know how you're doing." Security escorted them to the stage. Elvis greeted them with hugs. "So, did you two figure things out?" "We did," Karen said, smiling. "We talked, a lot, and we're getting married, for real this time." "That's wonderful," Elvis said genuinely. "So Michael proposed again?" "Actually, no," Karen said. "We decided together, no proposal, just a conversation where we both said we were ready and we both said yes." Elvis looked delighted. "That's even better. That's what I was hoping you'd do. Marriage is a decision you make together, not something one person does to the other." Elvis turned to the audience. "Folks, remember this couple from last year? Michael proposed, Karen said no, and I made them go talk. Well, they did the work. They built a real partnership, and now they're getting married. Let's give them a round of applause." The audience erupted. Many people had been at the previous year's show and remembered the awkward proposal. This felt like a redemption story, a happy ending to a painful moment. "I've got one more thing," Elvis said. He walked backstage briefly and returned with a guitar. "This is for you two, a wedding gift." He handed them a guitar signed by him and every member of his band. On the back, Elvis had written, "To Michael and Karen, may your marriage be built on communication, respect, and love. Congratulations, Elvis Presley, November 1974." Michael and Karen cried. Elvis hugged them both. "You two are going to make it. I can tell. You did the hard work. You learned to talk to each other. That's what marriage is, choosing every day to communicate, even when it's hard." 50 years of marriage. Michael and Karen got married in December 1974. They've been married for 50 years. They have 3 children and 7 grandchildren. And they credit Elvis Presley with saving their relationship. "We were headed for disaster," Karen said in a 2023 interview. "Michael was planning our whole life without consulting me. I was resenting him but not speaking up. We loved each other, but we didn't know how to be partners. Elvis saw that in 5 minutes and called us out on it. He forced us to have the conversation we'd been avoiding. That conversation saved us." Michael added, "I was so embarrassed that night. I thought Karen saying no in front of 3,000 people was the worst thing that could happen, but it was actually the best thing. It forced us to stop avoiding hard truths. We spent a year learning to really communicate. We learned that marriage isn't about grand romantic gestures. It's about the daily choice to listen, to respect, to see your partner as an equal. Elvis taught us that." 50 years later, they reveal what Elvis whispered. At their 50th wedding anniversary party in 2024, Michael and Karen revealed something they'd never told anyone publicly. When Elvis hugged them before they left the stage in 1974, he whispered something to each of them. To Michael, Elvis whispered, "The strongest men are the ones who listen. Real masculinity is respecting your partner's voice." To Karen, Elvis whispered, "Don't ever shrink yourself to make someone else comfortable. You deserve a partner who celebrates your voice, not silences it." "Those whispered words became our foundation," Karen said at the anniversary party. "When we struggled in our marriage, and we did struggle, like every couple does, we'd remember what Elvis told us. Michael would ask himself, 'Am I listening?' I would ask myself, 'Am I speaking up?' And we'd course correct." Michael added, "People ask how we've stayed married for 50 years when so many marriages fail. The answer is Elvis Presley. He taught us that marriage requires more than love. It requires communication, respect, and the willingness to see your partner as a complete person, not just someone who fits into your plans." That lesson saved our marriage before it even started. What others learned that night. The 3,000 people who witnessed the original proposal gone wrong in 1973 never forgot it. Many said it changed how they thought about relationships. One woman who was there said, "I was engaged at the time. Watching Michael propose and Karen say no made me realize that my fiancé was doing the same thing, planning our life without really listening to what I wanted. I called off the engagement. Best decision I ever made. I later married someone who actually saw me as a partner." A man who attended with his wife said, "My wife and I had been married for 10 years and were struggling. Watching Elvis counsel those 2 young people made us realize we'd stopped communicating. We'd been coasting on assumptions and avoiding hard conversations. We went to couples therapy after that trip. It saved our marriage." Others said the experience changed how they approached their own proposals. "I was planning to propose to my girlfriend with a big public gesture," one man said. "After seeing what happened to Michael, I realized I needed to have a conversation first, make sure we were on the same page, make sure she wanted what I wanted. When I did eventually propose, it was after we'd talked about marriage, agreed we were ready, and decided together. The proposal was just a formality. A nice formality, but we'd already made the decision together." Elvis's philosophy on marriage. Elvis spoke about marriage and relationships frequently in his later years. The Michael and Karen incident seemed to crystallize some thoughts he'd been developing based on his own failed marriage to Priscilla. In a 1975 interview, Elvis said, "I made a lot of mistakes in my marriage. I thought love was enough. I thought if I provided financially and showed affection, that was enough. But I didn't listen. I didn't see Priscilla as a full person with her own dreams and needs. I saw her as my wife, fitting into my life. That's not partnership, that's ownership, and that's why we're divorced now. I learned from my mistakes, and when I see young couples heading down the same path, I try to help them avoid my mistakes. That's what I did with Michael and Karen. I saw Michael treating Karen like an accessory to his life instead of an equal partner. I saw Karen silencing herself instead of speaking up. They were recreating the dynamic that destroyed my marriage. I had to say something." Elvis's band members noticed a change in how Elvis talked about relationships after the Michael and Karen incident. Elvis became more thoughtful about relationships, one band member said. He'd see couples in the audience and comment on their body language, on how they interacted. He became fascinated by what makes relationships work or fail. I think he was trying to understand where his own marriage went wrong and how to help others avoid those mistakes. Have you ever been in a relationship where one person was planning everything without asking what the other person wanted? Were you the Michael or the Karen? How did you break that pattern? Share in the comments the lesson that spread. The story of Michael and Karen's proposal gone wrong and Elvis's intervention became legendary in relationship therapy circles. Multiple therapists and relationship counselors have used the story in their practice. One therapist said, "I tell Michael and Karen's story to almost every couple I work with. It illustrates so many relationship dynamics. The fear of communication, the making of assumptions, the importance of seeing your partner as an equal." Elvis wasn't a trained therapist, but his instincts were perfect. He identified the core issues and pushed them to confront those issues immediately. Another counselor said, "What Elvis did was radical. He stopped his show. He made 3,000 people wait while he helped 2 strangers figure out their relationship. That shows what he valued. Human connection over performance, real life over entertainment. That's the kind of priority shift we all need to make. People matter more than productivity, schedules, or appearances." The story has been featured in relationship books, therapy case studies, and wedding planning guides. The core lesson, talk before you propose, don't assume your partner wants what you want, has probably saved countless relationships from the same awkward outcome Michael and Karen experienced. What this story teaches us. November 10th, 1973, a man proposed in front of 3,000 people. His girlfriend said no. It should have been the end of the relationship. Instead, it became the beginning of a real partnership. Because Elvis stopped his show, he walked into the audience, he asked uncomfortable questions, he forced 2 people to confront truths they'd been avoiding. He taught them that love without communication is just 2 people standing next to each other feeling alone. That's the lesson we all need. Relationships fail not because people stop loving each other, but because they stop talking to each other. They make assumptions, they avoid hard conversations, they prioritize comfort over honesty. Michael assumed Karen wanted to get married. Karen assumed Michael knew she wasn't ready. They were both wrong because they never actually talked about it. How many relationships fall apart because of the same dynamic? How many marriages fail because 2 people never learn to communicate? How many proposals happen before the couple has actually discussed whether they both want the same future? Elvis taught Michael and Karen that marriage is a decision you make together, not something one person does to the other. That your partner is an equal, not a supporting character in your story. That talking about hard things is scary, but avoiding hard conversations is scarier. And 50 years later, Michael and Karen are still together, still communicating, still choosing each other every day. Because Elvis gave them the tools they needed before they made a permanent commitment. That's the gift we can all give to the people we love. Not grand gestures or romantic surprises, but real communication, real listening, real partnership. Ask instead of assume. Listen instead of plan. See your partner as a complete person, not just someone who fits into your vision of the future. That's what makes relationships last, not love. Love is the foundation, but communication is the structure you build on that foundation. Without it, love collapses under its own weight. Michael learned to ask. Karen learned to speak up. Together, they built a marriage that's lasted 50 years. All because Elvis stopped his show and forced them to talk. After hearing this story, what hard conversation have you been avoiding in your relationship? What are you assuming instead of asking? Will you commit to having that conversation today? Share in the comments. Your relationship might depend on it. Subscribe to Elvis Presley Legacy Stories to discover more moments that prove real love requires real communication. Share this story with someone who's planning to propose. They need to have the conversation first. And if you're in a relationship right now, put down your phone and go talk to your partner. Really talk. Ask them about their dreams, their fears, their needs. Listen to their answers. Build a partnership based on communication, not assumptions. That's what Elvis taught Michael and Karen. That's what saved their relationship. That's what can save yours too. Because marriage isn't about finding someone who fits into your plans. It's about finding someone you can plan with. Someone who sees you as an equal. Someone who listens when you speak and asks what you want. Michael and Karen found that. Not through a perfect proposal, but through a rejected one. Not through a romantic gesture, but through a hard conversation. Not through assumptions, but through honest communication. They've been married for 50 years. They have a beautiful family. They still hold hands. They still talk about everything. All because one night in Las Vegas, stopped his show and taught them what marriage really means. Not, I do, but we decide together. Not, will you marry me? But are we ready for this? Not, she'll probably say yes. But let's talk about what we both want. That's the lesson. That's the gift. That's what turned a humiliating rejection into a 50-year marriage. Talk first, decide together, build a partnership. That's what Elvis taught. That's what worked. That's what we all need to learn.